Welcome to episode 5 of This is Moose Country, the official podcast of your Halifax Mooseheads. Joined as always by Brad Cuzner. Got a great guest on the way today. It's Sawyer Hannay, former tough guy and Vancouver Canucks draft pick, longtime member of the Mooseheads, and of course has gone on to great things with his Country Liberty brand. So we'll share some thoughts with Sawyer and some great stories. Also, the Mount Rushmore of Mooseheads fighters coming up in just a little bit. But first, want to get into this last stretch of games, Brad, and Mooseheads have been playing some inspired hockey. I think we could now brand it as Andrew Lord hockey. That's
Lord, yeah.
it's been a new look to this team since Christmas. A lot of young faces, new faces, and 4 wins in the last 7 going into this road trip coming up. Just your thoughts on how the team's played recently.
Yeah, it's been a great run. I mean, taking us back, you beat a team like Rimouski on the road, 2 weeks ago, and then coming back, you got a tough team who has our number, Bathurst, and then followed up by Chicoutimi. Some great wins, but you look at the team dynamic, how we've been playing, very well structured. We're playing more of a bully type game.
I love it.
And you got guys stepping up and playing in different ways. Braden McPhee leading the way all season, has kind of, throughout the season, we always say drags people into the fight, and it seems like, guys are kind of taken to that more. You got the guys like McNabb and Walters and these guys that are kind of starting to play that way. And it's been great to see. We've kind of, we have a new brand of hockey for our team. It's been good to see.
I was going to say, the type of team that you'd probably like to play on, right? Like your style.
Yeah. It would, it'd be fun. We'd have probably a little bit too chirpy out there. There'd be too many chirps flying around. But no, listen, they're playing the right way. Not the most skilled team in the world, but you got to find ways to win, and you got to find different systems and whatever it may be in order to pull out those wins. And they've found that it was. We kind of had a game at the start of the year where, I wouldn't say Lordo probably would have been, extremely happy with. And now we're playing tight structure. We're playing the right way. We're not giving up many chances, and we're capitalizing when we can. And, I know, from your front, you've been a big fan of, obviously, the addition of Steinman.
Yeah.
The guy has been an absolute beast as well. Just talk about what you see.
He's been unbelievable, and extremely sad to see Mathis Rousseau go. In my mind, one of the greatest Mooseheads of all time, and did everything he could for this team. But happy to see him get that chance to win. And the positive trade-off is the fact that you get future assets in this deal, and you get Jacob Steinman for the last few months of his Q career, and he's come in with a wonderful attitude and. Really no pressure on him. There's a lot of pressure on Rooster and Moncton because you're the guy to go there and they make the big move for you. Or Steinman comes to a team that's, near the bottom of the standings, young squad, but man, has he been lights out. Just his save percentage is better in Halifax than it was in Moncton, and he was among the best in the league with Moncton. So that's how good he's been. He's really kind of given that steady backbone to the team that is full of young players playing in front of him, and kind of gives them that leeway to play their style of game and know that they've got somebody so solid behind them, and also serving as a great mentor for Nick Circa, who just came here as a 16-year-old, hasn't played a ton of hockey this year, even going back to Taft as well. So it's a good way to ease him in and someone to look up to and see how it's done. And Steinman, team of the week this week. Yep. He's been absolutely brilliant. So it's quickly given Moose fans somebody to love as well.
Yeah, and great personality. We had our season ticket member skate the other day, and he's engaged with all the kids, which you love to see. But we have a very young D-core. We have a young team in general, but we have a very young D-core. One thing I've noticed, above all else, is the guy loves playing the puck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure every defenseman will say having a guy who's good at playing the puck and who loves playing the puck makes the job for defensemen so much easier. So, you got these young D coming back for, with guys barreling in, trying to hit them. And you got a guy like Steinman going out and making the first play, making the first pass to beat them. He breaks down rushes, or he breaks down plays, offensive forechecks. It makes the job so much easier for defensemen, and along with his electrifying saves.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
he's a big goalie. He doesn't seem to get out of position. Maybe he's maybe not as aggressive as Russo was in that crease. He just kind of lets it come to him. And man, he's been great with the pad saves, and the glove is slick as well. So it's no, that's been great. Wanted to go back and kind of touch on some of those wins as well that we had, like. Obviously on the road against the Memorial Cup hosting Rimouski Oceanic with overtime win. That was real season changer for the Moose in terms of their confidence, I think, in this second half to know that they can beat the best. But the game here against Chicoutimi on Friday night, game of the year, eh?
Game of the year. Yeah, it was, like we said, it was bully hockey.
Yeah.
We had probably 3 of the biggest hits we've seen in the league.
That McNabb hit for me was the one.
It was one that you like kind of shook the building.
Yeah.
Like that was hard. The poor kid on Chicoutimi.
Yeah.
He was hurt. He was hurt. But no, they just seemed to play the right way and took it to Chicoutimi. And listen, Chicoutimi's young. I think they have 5 guys listed in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah, they're going to be good for a couple of years.
They still got, they're a very good team. And but you normally see those good teams kind of take over after the initial push that we tend to put on. And it didn't seem that way. They couldn't get their feet going. They couldn't get, anything really going. They're an off the rush team. They couldn't get anything. They couldn't find any offense. And we just took it to them all game.
Yeah. First period, I think that was the most exciting first period of hockey, really, in terms of excitement level for any game, going back maybe the year before to the game that Russo scored the goalie goal kind of thing. Yeah. I don't think I felt that much joy in the rink since that time. And that was kind of ran them out of the rink after 20 minutes of play, really. Mooseheads dominated. And again, I look back to the preseason, that first day of training camp, Andrew Lord and the hockey staff has all the prospects in the room at the RBC Center in Dartmouth at the practice facility, and talking, and Cam as well, talking about what type of team this team is going to be. And they said, we want to be a difficult team to play against. We haven't been in the past. It's going to change this year. You want people dreading coming to Halifax, the opposition. And, maybe not the case in the first half of the season. I think that game Friday night was exactly what they were talking about, and kind of hope that's a mold for the future for years to come.
Yeah, I think it's, you got a lot of young guys. You got the Danny Walters and the Kalen Blakes, and it does take a lot to get adjusted to the league. You look at a guy like Danny, probably, more of a skilled player when he's in U18s, and then moves up and kind of, I would guess probably wants to play that game a little bit. And then you start to realize, what's going to make you successful. And, he's a 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah, he's physically mature for 16.
He's a big boy. Yeah. So realizing that you can go on the ice and bully some of these, Chicoutimi is a great team. They got some big boys, but a lot of them are small, a little bit more skilled. So realizing that you're going to be effective by, putting it behind D and making their life miserable, turning around. And a guy like Will Bent, another big boy. So he, playing the same way and playing within the structure, but playing a heavy game. I think they're starting to realize that we can create time and space by using our body.
Yeah. And speaking of Will Bent, another guy that, like you said, big body. And the adjustment to the queue took a few games to see what he would bring to the table. But starting in that game Friday, he gets his first career goal, scores again on Sunday in the loss to St. John. But clearly he's starting to feel more comfortable now. You can see the feet moving, I think, more. And probably those first few games you're thinking, where am I on the ice? Am I doing the right thing? And when you start to think, the feet don't necessarily move, but he looked a lot more comfortable this weekend.
Yeah, it takes, there's two sides of it. Playing your first game, and playing your first couple games, you're either, you play it a little bit safe and you don't want to mess up and you don't want to be seen, or you go the other way and you normally, I probably would have been a guy who probably took 13 penalties in the first couple games, just trying to hit everything that moves. But now you're starting to see, you look at, I would take his second goal, for example. First goal was great, breakaway, found a pocket, a great shot. But the second goal, he gets it, drives wide, beats a guy, has the patience to go around the goalie,
Waited him out big time.
Waited him out, right? Like, normally on, less skilled players, less, goal scorers, you don't see that. It's, I have an opportunity to shoot. So his, hockey knowledge and understanding, I can get around this guy, I can wait, I can hold off the puck, and then take my shot when I'm ready. It shows he's a smart player and is kind of coming, more and more comfortable with the league.
So in the press box during the game, I'm doing my thing and sit next to Cam and Allie, and I distinctly heard Cam say, "Goal scorer's goal," when he scored that second one.
Goal scorer's goal.
And it absolutely was the case. So Ben on a roll, Mooseheads on a bit of a roll, 4 wins in the last 7, but more importantly, just playing their style of hockey. Doesn't get any easier for them this road trip coming up. They left this week, going on a 3-3 trip, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, playing in Baie-Comeau, Chicoutimi, much anticipated rematch, a quickly anticipated rematch, and then finish in Quebec City. What do you think of this trip coming up?
It's going to be another tough one. Baie-Comeau is they're right in the mix with Bathurst and Cape Breton for home ice for that fourth position in the conference. So, you realize these are the games that really matter for teams like that. Getting home ice makes such a difference when it comes down to playoffs. So, and Baie-Comeau is always hard to play against.
Yeah,
they're a big physical team. Chicoutimi's, I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to get us back because that's not the performance that they would have wanted to put forward. So
does the big ice make a difference for this game that we're not going to be able to run around as much, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're built that way, right? They're built for a little bit more skill, having a little bit of time. You can see that, their home record is a lot different than their road record because of things like this, because they have the more ice on the Olympic sheet.
Yeah.
And then a team like Quebec's always hard to play against. They're,
Eric Veilleux is their head coach.
Well coached. Yeah. Well structured. They're, I think you always say about Eric, he gets the most out of every single one of his players on the lineup. So
absolutely,
they're going to be tough to play against.
Yeah, I think this Mooseheads team is going to be the type that will relish in trying to play the spoiler role down the stretch as well for teams against like Baie-Comeau and Chicoutimi, who are really jostling for those big time playoff spots. Yep. And where the Herd kind of, right now, final playoff seed in the league right now. Games against St. John will be big down the stretch, so Sea Dogs get one from them to pull ahead a little bit on Sunday, but 3 more to go against the Sea Dogs this season. But I think Moose will be happy to play that spoiler role where they can, and maybe it happens this weekend. Would love to see it. I would think Nick Circa is probably going to get a start in there as well. We haven't seen him in a while. Yeah,
you would hope. I mean, he's showed that he can play. It's just more moving into next season, the comfortability of having a guy like that consistently be your guy. Listen, we talked about Steinman. Steinman's been incredible for us so far, but you do need to know what you're getting into next season.
You've got to get that experience.
Yeah, you don't want a kid. You don't want a kid playing 3-4 games and then all of a sudden, here's 58 kind of thing. So, hopefully he gets a few games. But if you look at the standings, we're right in the mix, right behind St. John. We're right behind Quebec. Gatineau's on our tail. Val-d'Or, we're right behind St. John, obviously. And so we're right in the mix. And this is just ideal world. Ideal world, we're first in the country like Moncton is. But if you can get to that 8th spot.
In this year's world.
If you can get to that 8th spot, wouldn't it be interesting, I guess, to have Steinman versus Russo in that first round?
I think it'd be more interesting for Mooseheads fans than it would be for I think Moncton fans might sweat a little bit. No, they've got obviously a fantastic team in Moncton, and to me, there's no doubt that Russo is going to dial it in come playoff time. We've seen it time and time again here, and maybe hasn't been the start that they've all wanted for him and for the team as a whole since the trade deadline in Moncton, but I'm quite certain they'll pull it together here come the stretch drive. Did want to mention we're both wearing some pretty nice duds today.
Fresh merch.
Yeah, from mooseshop.ca or in game at the kiosk. Both you got the new long sleeve crew neck.
I have it.
That our good friend Kevin Sanford, merchandise manager, let us wear today. I've got the crew sweater as well. Both made in Nova Scotia from Stanfield's. A lot of the clothing that the Mooseheads have is Nova Scotia made, so you can check it out. Pretty comfy. And keeping me toasty on a chilly day. So.
Great material. You can't tell that I'm sweating too much, so that's always good.
I was going to wear that one, but my shoulders look terrible in those T-shirts because I have zero shoulders. So.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's our little push for the merch for now. But another thing I wanted to get to happened within the last week was the new team, the Newfoundland Regiment, have been officially unveiled. Of course, the Acadie Bathurst T10 will be moving there at the end of the season, and they're starting to get the marketing campaign underway in Newfoundland. I thought the pageantry was pretty well done the other day by holding it in the military building, having the military a large part of that, and delving into their rich military history there by naming the team the regiment, unveiling the logo, the colors. What were your thoughts on the new look?
Yeah, it's a different. Normally you see teams come in and they're I don't want to say basic or pretty standard, but kind of neat that they took it completely different than any other team. I like the color scheme. I think there's a lot that they can do there. It'll be interesting to see once they have the jerseys, how they go about it. But no, it's an interesting name, like you said, with the military ties.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I think just overall they're doing things the right way, marketing wise. They some excellent videos to kind of correspond with that. The fact that they've already mentioned like, hey, every game we're going to come out and say, who are we? And everybody's going to respond, we're Newfoundlanders. And I think these days you have to have something uniquely yours to make you not just a run-of-the-mill hockey team. I know people that we work with work diligently to try to come up with that sort of thing to say we're from Halifax. We've got, this giant moose. So we've got donairs being thrown, something to make it Halifaxy. And I think that Newfoundland is doing it the right way there as well. And that's what's going to give you longevity success, make that connection with your fan base. And I think Cape Breton started to do a good job with that as well. And that's something they've needed for quite some time in Sydney. And that's what you got to do. And I think they're doing a great job so far. So looking forward to seeing them join the league, and looking forward to maybe us getting on a road trip there too.
Yeah.
You never know.
I don't know if they'll bring the business staff over, but there is the, there's obviously the on-ice product, the team, but there's like you said, the sense of pride, and then coming to the games,
that's what it
being
starts
entertained,
with, right?
and having pride and passion. And Halifax comes out with it in bundles for the Mooseheads, and I'm sure. Listen, Newfoundlanders are extremely proud of where they come from, and I'm sure it'll be the exact same over there.
I was interested to know how it's going to work schedule wise. What how that will all go down. Been told that teams from the Maritimes will travel twice to Newfoundland and play back-to-back games, and Newfoundland will do the same. They won't have every Quebec team come there every year. It's going to kind of alternate in the way the schedule will balance out. And there apparently also an emergency fund from the league that every team's kind of paying into if you get storm stayed, which is, if you're flying
Very
in and
likely.
out of Newfoundland,
Yeah.
it happens a lot in the winter. Like there's a lot of flight delays. So that's a way, especially for those small market teams that can't necessarily always afford that extra cost. So that emergency fund will be there for them as well. So looking forward to seeing Newfoundland in the league at the start of next year. That also means the last ever Acadie Bathurst game in Halifax is coming up very shortly on February 8th here at Scotiabank Centre. It's also the Mooseheads Fight Cancer Night. So if you're a fan of the T10, you live in Halifax, it's your chance to get out and see them one more time in Moose Country.
It's been a great rivalry over the past
really
number of
has,
years.
yeah.
Maybe not the last year and a half until last weekend, because they've gotten the better of us.
It's been a one-sided rivalry.
It's been very one-sided, but listen, Bathurst is known for coming in and playing a hard game, and they've had a great run, with a Memorial Cup and great run in Bathurst. So it'll be tough to see them go, but they've got our number, so we're happy that they're at least changing that up.
Yeah, exactly. And we're thinking about the business staff and hockey staff there. Everybody's wondering if they have jobs, to be honest. And so thoughts are with them. You've all done a fantastic job over the years, working with what you have to work with and putting putting on a show at the Casey Irving Regional Center. So thanks to everybody for that as well. So looking forward to that final Bathurst game in Moose Country on February 8th. And again, we've got Sawyer Hannay coming up here in just a few moments. And maybe this will lead into today's Mount Rushmore because Sawyer, somebody vying for that spot, I think. We're going to do Mount Rushmore of Mooseheads fighters. Not something obviously we see much anymore, but hockey has changed. Look, B&V guys already chiming in with their top four. So Brad, maybe you start us.
Let's go with B&V.
Okay.
So let's see what they got.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
all right.
See what they got.
It's a really official piece of loose leaf here. Well, and number one on their list, Mr. Trey Lewis, who
there you go.
A guest we've already had on the show, and I think very deserving of that of that honor. Jody Shelley, one of the forefathers of Mooseheads fighters, I would say. Ryan Flynn, badass. He was he was unreal.
Yeah.
Played in the NHL as well. LA Kings guy. Somebody I thought could take a punch as well as he could throw one during his time.
Which is a skill in itself.
Tough guy.
Yeah.
And then maybe this is a misprint, but Brad Kuzner
No, that's not it.
Number four. I don't know what
one.
Mount Rushmore he belongs on. Maybe
yeah.
Mount Rushmore of Mooseheads podcast.
That would be Mount Rushmore of human punching bags. I would be up for that one, but I appreciate that, guys. I know you're lying.
Yeah,
so
but,
thank you.
And again, we love when you guys as fans chime in below with your comments and let us know what your Mount Rushmore is. A lot of fans, there's many generations of fans. Some have been here 30 years watching the team. Some have been around for 10 years, some for 5, but have followed from afar. So I would love to get your take on things as well.
Yeah. Do you want to get us going?
Yeah, sure. I'll go with my repeat that was on their list as well. I also have Jody Shelley. You can't go wrong with Shelley, a guy that could fight, could also play the game very well. That's part of the reason he made an NHL career out of it as well. So Jody, of course, really, I think, brought the fans together here in the early days and really rallied around him being a Nova Scotia boy, and the fact that he could drop the gloves in that era in particular. It was much more celebrated at that time, and Jody was a big part of it. So he's got to be on the list. Another guy who I thought, he didn't play here much. He was part of one of those guys that would go between Cape Breton and Halifax, was as tough as can be. George Davis.
Oh God,
George of the Jungle, I believe, was the song that was played.
I forgot he played here. Yeah,
he was. I remember coming to games and thinking that, man, I would be crying in a corner, running as far away if that guy was anywhere near me.
Yeah. Also famous for jumping in the bench in Cape Breton against Bathurst and fighting about 8 of them at once.
Yeah.
So
just as tough as they came.
Yeah.
Except for maybe this guy, Kevin Cormier, mid 2000s guy with the Mooseheads, just feared by all.
Yep.
I know Brian and Travis from the office say they, used to make sure that they were in the press box, ready to watch warm up every game, because that's how things have changed. They were excited to go watch warm up because he knew something was going to happen.
Yeah.
He'd be patrolling that red line and kind of making things happen against the other team. And Cormier was just an unbelievable fan favorite. I think when the team did that fans 15 years into the franchise, he was one of the top 15 favorites. That's
very impressive.
How much that fans loved him.
Very scary and impressive.
Yeah. And another scary guy, I distinctly remember a fight around New Year's of '99, Carlisle Lewis, who was just an animal and just not scared of anybody. He had that huge fight against Cape Breton. You remember the old tattered blue undershirt coming off and the shoulder pads and then pumping the crowd up, kind of like Jody Shelley did. And so I've got Jody Shelley, George Davis, Kevin Cormier, and Carlisle Lewis for my.
That is a very scary list.
Yeah.
I will go. So I went more with players who I would know and who would have seen. So Shelley's obviously on it. He would, very easy pick. I also have good buddy Trey Lewis. Nobody
tougher.
Pound for pound.
Yeah.
One of the toughest guys. Watching him, I played with a guy in Cape Breton as well. Blake Millman was his name. Millman was like 6'5", 250 pounds, it seemed. And I'll never forget Trey. Go to YouTube and watch it. It's the most incredible fight because Trey has to have a step ladder to get up to hit this guy. But I remember after the fight, Millman texted me and saying that Trey is the toughest guy I've ever fought.
Wow.
So very impressive. Yeah, very impressive. So Trey would obviously have to be on there. I have another guy I played with in Cape Breton as well. Played here briefly would be, and we talked about with Sawyer, Spencer Metcalf. Another guy, very undersized, but not scared of anybody. Fought the Brett Gallants and the Mike Thomases and the Ashton Bernards and all those guys. So he would be there. And a little off the board, I should say Sawyer, but I wasn't scared of Sawyer. So, but Sawyer, I'm going more, smaller guys who were pound for pound.
Right.
I would say Jared Grant. I remember, luckily, I got to know him, so it was a little bit nicer. He was a little bit nicer on the ice, but one of those guys that, like, in the back of everyone's head, everyone knew that he was tough. He wasn't, fighting heavyweights or anything like that, but he had some heavy scraps. I know he fought Josh Curry, and he messed him up pretty bad. I think Curry wore a bubble for about 2 years after that. But G was one of those guys that good player, but you knew that he had an angry side. He grew up on the north side with Ian Saab and the Roski boys and Tanner Manson and these guys who are all pretty heavy guys. So he's a tough character. So I'd say Jared Grant, Metcalf, Trey, and of course Jody Shelley.
All right. Well, yeah. Again, we want your 4 best Mooseheads fighters, your Mount Rushmore Mooseheads fighters, and compare them with ours. And I think with that, it's a perfect spot to toss to the interview with the tough guy himself, Mr. Sawyer Hannay. And it was good to chat with Sawyer, so we'll take it away with that. All right, we're joined today by a longtime member of the Mooseheads, a Vancouver Canucks draft pick, an entrepreneur extraordinaire, and a heck of a nice guy. Sawyer Hannay, glad to have you.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, guys. This is awesome. It's been fun just even, chatting with you guys now. It's kind of nostalgic, really. Like, it's bringing me back. So it's I'm happy to be here.
Just so you know, I did not write that intro. I did not think you were a good guy. But just to get it out on the plate early.
Well, you're coming to us from Nashville today. Why are you there? What's going on in Nashville?
Yeah, I'm in Nashville now. I'm expanding Country Liberty down here in the Southeast US. I came here on vacation a few years ago, fell in love with the place, realized there was a ton of opportunity for my brand down here. So I've been working the last year and a half on immigration stuff and, corporate structure stuff. And, but now I'm finally down here. I got an apartment here. That's where I'm recording from today. So finally made the leap.
Do they do immigration stuff at Tootsie's? Is that where it is downtown, down on the strip there? But
yeah. I had a handful of Broadway meetings. I had to go through meetings to earn my way to the city
for the last year and a half. For those who don't know, tell us about Country Liberty, how it started, where you're at today.
Sure. Yeah. So Country Liberty is a country lifestyle clothing brand I started when I was in university. So after my Moosehead days, but I'm from a small town, Rexton, New Brunswick. I was inspired to basically represent that small town with a university project, and just started selling stuff on campus, and it kind of took off. So now we sell across Canada in 120 stores. We sell online, different events, things like that. And now we're in the Southeast. We sell out of a store here in Nashville, and hopefully in 2025, a lot more stores down here in the US.
Has it been catching on in the US?
It's been really good. One thing when I came to Nashville was I realized the style here, like most cities, you look at like Toronto or something, it's kind of classy fashion, and I've always been a casual guy. And so Nashville's a really casual city. Like, girls are wearing like ball caps and jean jackets instead of like high heels and dresses. And so when I got down here, I was like, this is really our demographic. So it was just a perfect fit. So it's been taken off really well, but there's a lot more competition down here too.
And then in Canada, you got some pretty cool collabs. I know you're partnered with Cavendish Music Festival. It looks like you got
Yep.
Coors, or like Molson Coors.
Yeah.
You got a couple others. How big is Cavendish Music Festival for your brand?
Cavendish is huge, man. We've been working with them since 2017. Fantastic partners, fantastic people, good island people. Love to hang out with them. Love doing business with them. Great people, and it's so much fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of people, through those doors every year. But it's a blast. They do SOMO as well in September every year, so we partner with that. And yeah, we work with Coors. We have a collaboration with Coors. We have a collaboration with Realtree Camo. So every now and again, we try to partner with brands that make sense, that align with us. I know we did a partnership with you guys last year, which was super fun. So yeah, we're always just trying to, I guess the name of my game is staying relevant and doing fun, interesting things all the time to kind of stay on top of it.
Yeah, how often do you need to think, oh, I got to be coming up with something new, something fresh?
All the time, man. Like in our industry, it's seasonal. Typically, like spring, summer is a big collection, and then fall, winter, or holiday can be another. So like every season, you have to be on top of it. The marketing strategies have to be absolutely dialed. That's like probably the most important component of the business. And then product dev, graphics, styles, colors, all that stuff is always coming in and out. Which is crazy because I didn't really care for fashion before I got into this. So it was kind of so a lot of that stuff I had to kind of learn the hard way. But yeah, it's always changing all the time.
It's funny with, a lot of brands, you kind of look at, whoever started it, and there's no real alignment, to what their brand is. But I remember when you were 19, you went home and you sent me a picture, and you talk about Country Liberty and being like from the country. And I think you and your boys built a barge, and you had just a motor on the back just to go out to have a couple drinks on the water. So
that was before they policed our river. We would never get away. Never get away with that now. But yeah, we were broke teenagers, and we couldn't afford to buy a boat. We live on the river in a seasonal town, and so we built one. And like you said, it was a raft. We took someone else's docks that were given to us, put them together, bought a little outboard motor, made a Mickey Mouse little like rig to hook that up with, had batteries and electrical it wasn't safe.
Super unsafe. Yeah.
It was unsafe, but it was a blast, and yeah, to your point, that's where the inspiration of Country Liberty kind of came from. Just that barefoot and crazy mentality that we kind of grew up, within as kids.
Yeah, it's nice to see like you stay true to your brand, whereas like Brad mentioned, like some of these brands they're kind of all over the place, and you can't really see the connection. But you've obviously stayed true to it. And you're the brains behind it, but you must have some sort of team working with you now after this amount of years.
Yeah, we have a small team, and we're all pretty well virtual now that I've moved here. I have a warehouse and distribution center in my hometown in Rexton. So I have 2 team members there, and then the rest are virtual. I just made a hire here in Nashville. Actually, our marketing manager is now Nashville based. So yeah, working with a lot of good people and different people, and our team has always been pretty tight. But I've worked with a lot of people by contract and a lot of like partners and things through the years.
Now, in your early years, you got on big show Dragon's Den. You just tell us about the process of actually getting on there. You've been in 700 fights and have a bunch of brain damage, but how scary was it to actually, get on the panel and go through that process?
Oh man, yeah. When Scott said I was the brains behind the operation, I said, "Cuz is just chomping at the bit to say something about it."
Yeah. Big brains for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Dragon's Den. It's funny, man. Like hockey prepared me for things like Dragon's Den. I don't love public speaking. I do it sometimes. I don't like love it. So I don't love like presentations and stuff. I wasn't a good student, so that stuff doesn't come natural to me. But when Dragon's Den came around, it was a huge opportunity, and it was just like a big game. You got to get up for it. You got to prepare. I was preparing months in advance for it. I had a whole pre-game routine, like the day before, because it was an early morning pitch. It was an 8 a.m. pitch, but like I was like for days in advance, I was getting good rest, eating well, and going out was intimidating. It was during COVID, so you were not allowed contact with anybody. So I'm like 30 feet from like everybody, lights shining down on me, cameras in my face. You know you're on TV. You know there's 500,000 people that watch every episode. You know you're going to look like a moron if you like make a stupid mistake, right? So all of that for sure. But it was, again, just like a big playoff game. Like when you go out there, you know you have to perform or else. So, it felt a lot like that. And it kind of felt like fighting a little bit too, because the days, whenever I didn't want to fight, I take my gloves off and it's like, you're not going to put your gloves back on. You're going to go fight now. Right. So it was a way to trick your mind, like just get into it. And then with Dragons, then it was like, I'm just going to walk out. And once I'm out,
You got to go.
You're in it. There's no way you got to go. So, yeah, hockey, I feel like really prepared me for that. But yeah, it was a crazy experience. It was awesome. I recommend any business that, is prepared for that to try it, because it's great publicity. The news cycle was great, great exposure and a really good experience.
And so you're on there, like the episode is, you're on there for 3 minutes. How long is the actual pitch?
Yeah, the video I think was clipped into 6 minutes. The pitch was 45 minutes. I was the 8 a.m., so I was the first slot of the day. I had to be at studio for 6 a.m., so I was up and rehearsing at, maybe 5 or so, nervous, and yeah, it was 45 minutes, and it's way more casual than you think. Like at one point they pulled out their phones. They're like, take a minute to think about it, and they pull out their phones. But the TV, like the show would suggest you have like seconds to make a decision. It's not true. They're like, oh, just, do the math. And they like pull out their phones and they're hanging out. And they were nice. Like I knew you have to know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, they get really, pissed off. So I knew that. And I think that they respected me once they kind of knew I did my homework and I was prepared properly. They took it kind of easier on me. But even the way they edited the show, like, there was one girl, Manji, that it looked like she was really hard on me. And she was, but they cut out all the nice stuff she said, right? They wanted to make her look like a villain and make it look dramatic and suspenseful. And they even moved around some of the clips. Like some of the questions I answered were not in that order, like, just for sake of television to make it more entertaining.
Right.
But yeah, it's not at all like it appears. I'll say that. And the show and the Dragons are two different entities. CBC is trying to make great television. The Dragons are trying to find good investments. So at times they don't really like, they're kind of separate partners. So at times they don't really mesh as well as it looks on TV as well. Like once the show was recorded, I didn't hear from CBC again. They didn't even check up on me to see how things were going with the Dragon either, because there's like a few months of due diligence and you get a deal on TV, but it's just a handshake. And then the real deal, takes months to actually formalize.
Yeah. What were some of the words of advice you got from the Dragons afterwards?
So I ended up signing with Lane Merrifield, and he was a tech guy. So he helped me with a lot of like, I guess, kind of short-sighted problems I was having, because I was just, getting started, right? So I had all kinds of different like problems in my business. So he helped me with a lot of like day-to-day stuff, some management stuff. One of the biggest things that he helped me with was he recommended a book. It's called Buy Back Your Time, that I just like, I love. I've read it twice. I hired the guy that wrote it to be like a coach of mine and things like that. So that was one of the greatest takeaways. But he essentially worked as an advisor for the business.
See, that's where Brad's entrepreneur deal would have ended. He had to read a book.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah. Is it a coloring book? Because I'd get that. I would nail that. But no, it's interesting hearing them cut to make her look like a villain, and it must be tough for you. They cut the 6 minutes, and I'm sure everything else that they cut was all the smart stuff that you said. So,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they left out all the real great stuff.
Yeah. So switching gears back to, we'll get into your career a little bit, but grew up playing like just before junior with the Moncton Flyers. You had guys like Trey, Tyrone Sock, the Saunier twins. How cool of an experience was it? And you guys were a powerhouse. I think you went to nationals that year. So what a great ride that would have been.
Yeah, you think we went to nationals? You beat us in the nationals.
I know, I remember. Yeah, I just had to tee it up.
That's right. Yeah. No, we had a good team, and what's crazy about that team is I played with Trey, like Tyrone, Al Scully was on that team. He junior A, and then Saulniers had a good Q career. Durapo had a good Q career. I know I'm missing guys. Jean-Marc, Gino was drafted high. Like,
Was Noel
but that
there?
core team. Sorry,
Alex Noel, was he there?
Alex Noel.
Yeah.
Like that core team. We played together since we were little kids. Like we would play spring hockey if we were out of each other's regions. But the Saulniers, Durapo, Trey, Tyrone, we were all within the West Kent region. So even from Pee Wee up, we played like spring, but also winter, like regular season. And then in the spring, we'd play with like Alex Noels and those guys. And so it was really crazy that we kind of came up together. And I do think like the coaches that coached the 92s and the 93s were really, really good, and that's why our core developed. But yeah, we had a good team, man. I mean, you guys recruited players and you guys cheated. If it wasn't for you guys, I think we were the best team there. Honestly.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, we were. I mean, we beat Calgary. We beat Calgary, who you guys beat in the final.
Yeah.
We were down, guys. Durapo was. We had like 3 or 4 defensemen by the end of it. But yeah, man, we had a good team.
It was okay.
It's a great program, eh? Like I think that many Q players on that team. You look at the Q now. There's so many Moncton Flyers that have come out of that program in recent years. So it's pretty impressive.
Always guys getting drafted high. It is great, and you were one of them.
Yeah. No, it was. I loved playing in Moncton. It was the best thing for me. The time.
And 2009 rolls around. You and Trey, both from that same team, drafted a couple of rounds apart by the Mooseheads.
Yeah.
Walk us through your draft process with the Moose.
So this is a story nobody else knows because I was told I wasn't supposed to say it for like a long time, but it's been over a decade. My first year as a 16, we were on a stacked Moncton Flyers team. So I was like third pairing defenseman, whatever. I got a couple calls from teams, but never got drafted. Second year, we had a good team. So I was getting calls from all the teams. And I wanted to play in Halifax because it's Halifax. And I knew that I wasn't a great player. I knew I'd be a bubble player to maybe make it, maybe not. And I knew that they had we had a weak team the year before I played there. So I was telling teams when they call me, and I was advised by like, someone connected in hockey that I trusted that to do this. And I would tell the other Q teams that my parents recently got a divorce and my mother wouldn't let me leave home to play major junior. So when all these teams, Chicoutimi called me, they're like, we want to take you in the second round, which would have been horrible because they have the Olympic size ice anyway. And that wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
But they're like, we want to take you in the second. We're talking to all these teams, like, we want to draft you. And I was like, no, like, mom won't let me leave home. Of course, my poor mother, who is the most supportive human being on the planet, she had no idea about this little scheme that we cooked up. So I was telling all these teams, no, don't want to play. Of course, I told Halifax. I was like, yeah, like,
I'm in.
I'm in. And one of the teachers, the St. John Sea Dog Scout at the time, was a teacher. My mother's a teacher. And he approached her at a teacher's conference and was like, you were holding your son back. Like, what are you doing? And, my poor mother calls me hysterical. She's like, Sawyer, I love you. Like, I would never hold you back, going on. And I was like, oh, Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have brought you into this scheme. But yeah, I was, I wanted to play for the Mooseheads, and it was somewhat in my control. All the teams called me, so I felt like I had a choice, and I was just like, I want to be a Moosehead, so I'm going to do what I have to do to be a Moosehead.
Just to be clear, we work for the Mooseheads. It was not the Mooseheads that advised you to do that, right?
No. Of course, it was actually someone from my hometown that just connected in hockey, and I don't know, ran with the idea.
Someone thought it would be funny, so they're like, "Try this, give it a go, see how it works." Yeah. And then you get drafted by the Mooseheads.
It would have been real funny if Halifax didn't pick me.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's the 9th round, and you're like, "Well, what happened here? I could have been in Chicoutimi right now."
Yeah, Olympic size rink.
Yeah. First year you get there, first couple years, couple dark years. Obviously, not many wins, but tell us about how tough that was. You also got to play for Cam and Bobby, our old owner, Bobby Smith, and Cam Russell, our current GM. Obviously tough, but I'm sure great playing for those guys.
Yeah. I mean, it was, It was great. I mean, Cam, great guy. To this day, we keep in touch here, and he's seen a fight I had 2 years ago in senior, and he texts me. He's like, looking good or something, right? Just being a smart ass. But yeah, it was great, and I really looked up to Cam. Still do. Tough, hard nosed defenseman. Like I feel like my game was very similar to his. So just a really great guy for me to move away from home at a young age, and then have as a bit of a mentor. Was just fantastic. But yeah, those first 2 years, man, were rough. Like our first year, I don't think we got our tracksuits till November. It's like, you can't give us a tracksuit after a loss, and we lost until November. So yeah, that was dark, and losing every night, being away from home was tough. I fought a lot that year, it was tough, until we turned it around. But once we turned it around, it was awesome. Like my 19 year was probably the funnest year of hockey I've ever had until I got my concussion. It was just great, so it was certainly worth it. But yeah, man, it was tough. It was tough losing. I'm a poor loser. I don't like to lose, and it was not fun.
It wasn't a lot of fans hanging out at the rink at that time between 08 and 2010 as well, but you got to see their turnaround. So you got kind of the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah. I got to see how special it was to play and win and have success in Halifax and play with great players. And it's crazy what you guys have done since, like the players that you have developed, the first overall picks, the high first round picks, like it's really unbelievable. And it makes me really proud to, say that I'm an alumni, which a lot of people don't realize the difference between a guy like me that's, runs a clothing brand, and then a guy like Nathan McKinnon who's making $14 million a year. It's hard for them to wrap their head around, like, we were on the same ice surface, because it's such a different, exactly. It's such a difference, but hey, I could say I played with some great players.
You were just as good of a skater as Nate was. I believe that, but
you better watch your mouth. I'll take more of your teeth.
Yeah. These are all for everyone watching. These are all fake because of Sawyer. So thank you very much.
For tell that story.
But, no.
Okay.
But no, he listen, during those years, obviously not the team you wanted, but off ice, great group of guys. You had Brent Andrews, Darcy, Trey.
Yeah.
How much did it mean to come to the rink? At least if you're losing, you're having fun with those guys.
Yeah, they were great guys, and great guys to come up with. And the irony is I played against a lot of them. Like my first camp, I didn't know anybody at camp. The only guys I knew were guys that I rivaled against, before. So it started off like a little hairy with like Brent Andrews, because he was the star of Cornwall, right? The midget team. And we were in Moncton, and Jordan Costello and those guys. Darcy Ashley was such a competitor growing up. So we've always we didn't like each other, So then now all of a sudden we're on the same team and getting to know each other, and it flips pretty quick when you spend that much time together. And they're all very good people. They're just very competitive. So of course we butted heads playing against each other, but no, they're great guys, and still keep in touch with a lot of them, to play with.
Darcy and Brent could be great brand ambassadors, couldn't they, for Country Liberty?
Yeah. Darcy on the fishing boat. Yeah. He'll be on the fishing boat. But
they're our targeted demographic.
But listen, you talk about being a little hairy coming in and stuff. I mean, I played 2 years in Cape Breton, and then you come to Halifax, and I probably asked Sawyer.
I hated you. We hated you.
I probably asked Sawyer and Trey to fight over 30 times a game, and they both said no. And now I got to go be their teammate. It's but a very welcoming group.
Yeah. That's how it happened.
Yeah, that's what I'll keep telling myself. How much difference you get into that season? You draft we draft Drouin, you draft Fuchs. Obviously the big trade for Nate. From a team who's struggling, how much difference of a feeling is it coming into that season?
Yeah, well, it was. We all heard the hype about McKinnon. I didn't see him play, until he was on the ice with us. I knew he was good. We traded, I think, 3 firsts? Carl Jelna, our leading scorer, who was a great player. Francis Turbide, I think, was in. It was a huge deal for a player that never played. And we're like, this is huge.
This guy better be good.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we
knew he was going to be pretty good, but it's just this is a huge package for a guy that hasn't played yet. And I knew a lot was given up for Marchand before the dark days. So I was like, it's high risk. But yeah, Nate came in. He was a freak. He looked like just kind of a skinny kid, like, but hit like a truck, could skate like the wind. Like when you looked at him, I remember looking at him being like, where does he get all the power? Where in his body does the power come from? He's a 16-year-old,
130 pounds.
Yeah, he was just a beast from the moment I remember seeing him in the inner squad. Like I was just like, he's gonna make the NHL, no question. He's 10 steps ahead of everybody else, and it's his first day of the job. And then Drouin, he came in later in the season. I remember his first shift, he was like nervous, and it was like, I remember it being like a 20-second shift and being like, oh, like he's nervous. And 3 months later, he was like, best player on the team, like him and Nate. Like I was just like, oh my God. So they were freaks. Marty Frk was another freak. He was so good too when he first came. Fucali was good. He started 48 straight games that year as a rookie. I think that's a record. Like just a freak. So yeah, I was lucky to play on the second half of my career in Halifax to play with some really great guys.
I think we ask everybody, do you have any good Marty stories?
I got some Marty stories. My first impression of Marty was, first of all, he didn't speak English. And I see him at camp at the Cole Harbour place. He's got this greasy scar on his shoulder. And he's like 17 or 18. I was like, what? Has this guy been to war and back already in this lifetime? Like, what is going on? He had the gnarliest scar. And he had a curve on his blade like this. And I remember his like skate wear, like his gear wear was a little different. I was like, this guy, what is this? And he starts buzzing around and starts shooting pucks. And everybody in the building is in awe. And he's the only one on the ice at this time for whatever reason. He's the first guy we're all just watching. And he's hammering pucks. So we heard all the hype and how good he is. He's hammering pucks. We're like, oh, this is going to be great. What a hard shot. He always shoots high. Clappers. He's like Ovechkin, top circle, shooting high. We thought it was going to be great until we started practicing power play and penalty kill. And he's just wiring pucks at your face, like no mercy. And we're like, Marty, like, what are you doing? You're going to kill us. He's like, Marty, score. Marty here to score. Like, yeah, it's practice and I'm your teammate and you're going to like, he's thinking there's other defensemen that can come in. He's like, I'm brought in for one reason.
Yeah.
It's to bury pucks.
It's funny because he would be mad at you for blocking the shot.
Yeah. Trust me, we were getting out of the way. At that point, it was like, whoa, you're like dancing out there. And you want to, practice a penalty kill properly, but not when he's shooting. You're just like, I'm going to let this one go by.
just score and get it over with.
But Marty, he used to start fights, man. Like he didn't know the etiquette of North American hockey and he wouldn't drop his gloves. He'd go out and start stuff. And then guys like me and Trey would have to come clean it up. And I remember telling him like, Marty, stop doing that. And there was one time in Chicoutimi, they were on the power play. It was a road trip. Chicoutimi and Quebec City were part of the road trip. I don't remember the other games, but they were on the power play. So you got like Conrad, McKinnon, Drouin, Marty, like, and Marty starts a fight. And this O'Brien kid, kicks his ass. And he kept his gloves on. He started it. He kept his gloves on. He got beat up. I'm like, okay, whatever. Bobby loses it because this is his newly acquired superstar. And Bobby loses it. And he's like, why didn't anyone stick up for him? And we're like, well, and he took us into the dressing room before the Quebec game. He's like, why didn't anyone stick up for him? It's like, well, me and Trey are like, dude, we're not on the power play. We're on the bench. Like, what do you want us to jump the bench? That would probably be bad. Well, I mean, willing, but probably not a good idea. And Bobby wanted to healthy scratch a couple of us guys for that reason. And Cam stood up for us. And in Quebec City, Cam was like, no, the boys are going to play. And at this point, it was my 18 year. So I was already drafted the NHL. So it's like, it's going to look weird. You're going to health bomb your recent draft pick. So anyway, Cam played us. And Marty, with his head down, right through the center of the Pepsi Center, gets hammered by Patty Waugh's son there. What's his name? Frederick Waugh.
Yeah.
Freddie Waugh. Elbowed, nailed him. Building erupts. I'm on the ice. I'm thinking, if I don't do something here, I'm losing. I'm going home. I'm going back to Rexton to build boats. B. Yeah, I'll be in Junior B. I will be buried. I will be a boat builder for the rest of my life.
Who wants a raft?
A raft, exactly. And so, of course, I jump Freddie. It's on YouTube. And it's one of the craziest sucker punches. Like it's totally against like what I believe. But in that moment, I was like, my career is on the line. And sure enough, I knocked him out, sucker punch, huge suspension in the Pepsi Center in front of like a full crowd. Like I'm getting garbage thrown on me. I'm getting, and I just remember I was like, it was my biggest suspension. And I was just like, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I had to do this because, of course, it had to be Marty who got his head taken off. Had it been a fourth line guy, maybe the pressure wouldn't have been so felt. But yeah.
Listen, going after Freddie Waugh, he was probably one of the biggest agitators, biggest rats in the league.
He was.
Probably felt
Besides
great.
you. Besides you.
Yeah, but he was good too, so it was different. But that probably felt amazing.
It felt amazing. I didn't like them. And then we beat them. I think it was later that year. We came back from 3-0 and beat them in Quebec City. And I remember him like swinging his stick at our whole crew as we were celebrating the win. He like baseball swung his stick, and that's the last time I ever seen that guy. But I just remember being like, this guy is nuts. And
did he hit anybody?
And Pat, no, he didn't hit anybody. We were all just storming the goalie. Like we just won in Game 7 in Quebec City, and he swung his stick, and I just remember that, and it got broken up and whatever. But Patty Waugh, man, he's had it out for me. He got suspended. I think he was suspended. He sent Dylan Donnelly out when I was in Vic to jump me because I was messing with Duclair. And we had words and stuff, which was like so cool because it's Patrick Waugh. I told off Patrick Waugh. It's pretty sweet. And then I had to play with Donnelly after. He come up to me in university. He's like, sorry about jumping you, man. I left the bench and jumped you. Sorry about that. I was like, it's all right.
Yeah, Patrick would be an interesting coach to play for. I think he gets the most out of his guys, and he's a motivator for sure. If
not, you're having a tough practice.
Yeah.
Listen, you were part of that run, the down 3. How meaningful was that? Just tell us about your memories of the whole series in general.
Yeah. So that was my 19 year. I had a concussion I got a concussion in Baie-Comeau, and I came back for the first game of playoffs. So I was just happy to be back, but I was like back in a much smaller role. And I remember as those playoffs progressed, Drouin took off. That was like Drouin's really breakout playoff. And of course, Nate was good, always good. Critch scored like 3 or 4 goals in one of those games. Like it was really crazy to see. And when we went down, I think it was a 2-3-2 series. So we went to Quebec for 2 games, lost. We came back to Halifax for 3 games, lost the first one. We're down 3-0. We win the next 2. Which it looked like we were down and out. So we go back to Quebec and it's 3-2, but now we need to win 2 games in that barn. And biggest crowds in the league, loudest crowds. I remember during the national anthem, you couldn't even hear the lady singing because everyone was just screaming. Just a crazy atmosphere. Patty Waugh on the bench across from you. They had Duclair, they had Griborenko, they had, I'm sure I'm missing guys. Frederick Waugh was there.
Yeah. Adam
Ernie was there.
NHL, yeah.
Yeah, they had a good team, man. And that was the craziest playoff series in my whole career, no doubt. And it was insane. And like to see Drouin, I think he was 16, or 17, 16, I think at the time, just put the team on his back and then timely goals. Like I remember Critch got a bunch of like tapping, like hardworking goals. And we're just like, it was special. That was definitely the most special series I've ever been a part of.
It was crazy. The national anthem, one of the games, there was like a kids choir. I don't know if you remember this. And at the time, it was like, I believe it was when Quebec was trying to leave the country to become their own independent country. And so they would just cheer over the national anthem. They just didn't want. And so like you got these poor kids go out as a choir to sing the national anthem. They're all probably jacked up to sing the choir. And then you can't hear one word that they say the whole time.
Can't even hear them.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, man. If I got hired to sing the national anthem, I would hope it was so loud they couldn't hear me either.
Yeah. I think that's why the fans would cheer, is so that they didn't have to hear you.
That's right. There you go.
You talk about the feel after you guys tie it 3 games apiece. What's the feeling going into that Game 7?
Well, to win 2 games in a row in Quebec, plus they were coming back from Quebec after losing twice. Like we knew Patty was going to be hard on them. They were going to come ready. So it was like, oh my God, we beat them. We got one more game to go. And all of a sudden, because it felt like we were behind the whole series. So it just felt like we were behind, like, and every extra game was a bonus. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoever wins this game moves on. We're not playing from behind anymore. It's winner takes all. So it was just, it was unbelievable feeling. And then when we came back, I think we played Rimouski. I think we lost to Rimouski after that series. And I remember coming back to the Metro Center, and it was just as loud as in Quebec, like the loudest I've ever heard the Metro Center, was when we got back after that series, because the whole city celebrated the win. I mean, this come from behind win against, such a historic, legendary team. And it was special.
It was massive. And Dom Ducharme, the right guy behind the bench at that time, right? Like, he was a heck of a coach.
Yeah, the stars just aligned, and it's funny because we had such a young core, like it just worked out. But what a run. That was my 19th season in Halifax. Is probably the most fun I've ever had playing hockey.
You talk about Country Liberty and your brand. I'll never forget. We were in the third round of playoffs, and we had like kind of a day off. We went in to watch video or whatever it was, and everyone's coming in, and I remember Sawyer showing up, and he had the cutoff shorts, the jean shorts, and the cutoff plaid shirt.
It's where it began.
It's where it began, and he walked in, and everyone's like, "What are you doing?"
Stayed true to my roots, man.
Yes, you talk about not having any fashion sense. That was the third round of the playoffs.
Hey, it took some work to get to where I am now. I'll tell you that.
Holy!
We touched on it briefly, but talk about being drafted in the NHL, Vancouver Canucks, 7th round. That had to be a fabulous moment in your life.
Yeah, it was. I mean, where I grew up, there wasn't anyone that played Major Junior for 20 years or something before me, so I didn't even think Major Junior was really possible for me. So when I made Halifax, it was a huge deal for me and my family and things. And then when I started getting a few calls, and I only got a few calls from NHL teams, like maybe three or four, it just seemed like fairy tale. Yeah, I didn't even. There was one scout in St. John. I was like, is this someone messing with me? Like, is this a scout? Like, are you kidding? So it was never really on my bingo card to get drafted. I had a good year that year, and I got these calls. I got an agent because I was told I was supposed to. I was like, I don't need an agent, and then this agent's like, you should go to the draft. I think it was in LA. He's like, you should go to the draft. And I'm like, I don't know, like, I should have gone to the draft in hindsight, but I was like, at the time, 17, I was like, I don't know, it's a long way to go. I haven't been home all summer. It's my high school graduation. I'm not going to go to the draft. And on the day of my high school graduation, that Saturday, like I graduated at 10 a.m. and then a few hours later, I got a call from Vancouver saying I was drafted. So I was at a big family event for my high school graduation. Another cousin of mine graduated, and he had this great big party, whatever. And I got a call from Vancouver, and they're like, "Yeah, we just drafted you, and you better get in shape. You're coming in 2 weeks.
You're 3 sheets to the wind."
Did you say I'll start tomorrow?
I was like, okay, I'll be ready, and I wasn't ready.
Yeah,
of course I wasn't ready.
Get on the waters.
Yeah, get on the waters. And at that time, I wasn't even like, it's crazy to think, like, I was going, my first NHL camp, I just trained in Rexton by myself, like without a trainer, without any real knowledge of training, like just so amateur. And it took until the next year I went to camp that I, stayed in Halifax that summer, and Cam helped me out with the connection there with a trainer. And, but the first year it was like, I could barely do the bench press tests. Like, I was a skinny, kid, like, from this small town that never even thought it was possible to show up at those camps, and I'm eating dinner. I'm sharing a cab with Roberto Luongo and, the Sedins and Morrison, and Vancouver had a good team back then. And, I'm just like, I just felt like a fish out of water for sure. It was dreams come true.
Did you get to spend much time with those veterans? And if so, do they, push some knowledge on you, or is it just kind of meet and greet? Pretty high level.
Kind of meet and greet. I think those guys see so many prospects come and go. Once you get to main camp, which they brought me to main camp both years, you get a little bit more FaceTime with them, like to a point that you're like sharing a locker room with them, or, so you kind of get the talk. But as you probably remember, like rookie culture, it's like you shut your mouth, you sit down, don't make too much eye contact, respect everybody, like don't be loud, don't be, so I was just very reserved into myself. But it was special watching, just seeing those guys and just being around them. And I remember we had an inter squad game, and Rick Rippon, rest in peace, but he was there, and he was like just running people over. And Rafi Torres was in that game. Todd Fedoruk, who was trying to trying to stay in the league as a fighter, like bruiser, was just taking runs at my 17-year-old little frame. Like I remember thinking, because I have a late birthday too, so I was like the youngest guy at camp, and I just remember these guys running me over time and time again, and I was like, oh my God, I am not ready for this level.
And so at the time in junior, I wouldn't say good defenseman, but you were a defenseman and known for, fighting. Like you obviously weren't scared. Are you going in thinking like, all right, I'm going to have to drop the gloves with these guys? Or are you like, I'm just getting through and then I'll, beat everybody up in the Quebec League? Or
well, no, like they compared me a lot to Adam McQuaid. I don't know if you remember him. He played for
Islander.
Boston. Maritime guy. Yeah, he had better stats than me in junior, but he played like me, very defensive, and I really fell into my lane when I played with Conrad, and we were like shutting down first lines. Like I was just the defensive defenseman, and they told me to just stick with that. They're like, we know you're willing to fight, we know you can fight, focus on that. So of course, when I went to camp, I was, trying to do anything to get noticed. So fighting was something I could do that most others would do. So I knew in my head I was going to do it, but no one ever mentioned it to me. No one ever expected it. It wasn't really spoken of, but I just kind of knew that I had to. And we played, Craig McTavish was our coach. I think he was coaching the minor league team at the time. So he coached our prospect team, and we went to Penticton and we played against Taylor Hall and those guys. And they had this tough guy, Cameron Abney. And I remember he came in before the game, Craig McTavish, who, last guy to wear a helmet in the NHL, like so cool that he's there coaching us. And he says, there's this kid, Cameron Abney. He's beating up everybody in his junior league. No one has to prove anything. You don't want to get hurt. Don't fight him. So of course, the first thing I'm thinking is I'm going that guy, like he's the one guy that told me not to fight. So I did. Center ice, we went. It was a good fight. Just same as Halifax camp back my first year, like fighting kind of separated yourself from others. Like most guys weren't willing to do it. So if you were, that's an extra like tool in your belt,
Was there, through your career, was there anybody you remember stepping up against and being like, oh God, this is going to be a tough one? Was there anyone you enjoyed going after? I know you fought Spencer Medcalf, who was the year before your D partner, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that was crazy. Dave Babbage, the Vancouver player development guy, was actually in the building that night. It was a pink in the rink night. He was my good buddy before we squared up, and he was my good buddy after. He's an unbelievable human. But I just asked him. There was like 3 or 4 fights back to back on those whistles, and it was he in Cape Breton or Moncton? I don't even remember, but it was a rival team.
Oh yeah, I was with Cape Breton at the time. I was with Metter.
Right. Yeah, you were with Metter.
I was on that side, so I was happy to see it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was great. And he's a lefty, and he hit hard. I remember him hitting me hard. And fighting lefties was always tough because punches are coming from an unfamiliar place. Like most guys fight right-handed. So I remember that being a tough one. When I fought Ashton Bernard as a rookie, that was a big pivotal moment in my career. I was in and out of the lineup leading up to that. I think it was like end of October. And that Friday night, I got the old hook where it's like, you dress 7 defensemen, one of them's getting scratched. After warm up, you get the hook. You're like, come on down the hall and get undressed. I remember that feeling, and I remember going to the gym after, and just in my head, I was like, I got to do something to change this. So the next night we were playing Bernard, who led the league in fights the year before, and he was like a 19-year-old with like NHL drafted and all that. And I was like, I don't want to be scratched like that anymore. It was miserable. So first shift, I challenged him and fought him, held my own. It was good. And then that fight kind of solidified me as a guy that could handle himself. And from then on, I was never a health bomb. again. So I think I earned the respect of like the, coaches and management and teammates and stuff after that one.
And Ashton was a guy like, for yourself, you're good at fighting. I don't think, you enjoy it, but it's not like I want to fight every single night. Ashton was a guy who loved fighting.
Loved it.
And
Loved it.
The best part was that he was my line mate. So I could do whatever I want. Yeah. No, my God. No, I was lippy as hell. And then he'd just go in and beat anybody up. So
yeah. He was tough, man. Kalen Paul was tough. Kalen Paul, he played in Cape too. He's my first lefty. He taught me a lesson, man. That summer I went home and boxed all summer, and I was like, I got to learn how to punch with my left because he whooped me, and I was just like that can't happen again.
Yeah, we had Ashton, and then we traded for Kalen, so it was toughest guy in the league, and then traded for second toughest guy in the league. It was
scary team.
Yeah, and then myself, third toughest guy in the team. No, that was Ashton was very tough. Speaking of fighting, you went on to play with the Hawks. We're jumping ahead. We'll ask about your little trip to Europe and stuff after, but you played with the Hawks, and then a video came out last year, 2 years ago. And so basically backstory on the video, I don't know what happened, but Sawyer's trying to fight a guy, and
this is senior league.
This is senior league, yes,
senior league, yeah.
And a guy doesn't want to fight him, so he skates off the ice, and Sawyer decides, in the nicest way possible, I'm going to skate off the ice behind him, and I'm going to beat him up in the stands. So, run us through where your headspace was at.
All right. So let me tell the real story of what happened there. So yeah, we're playing senior, and senior was fun. I'm a little too old now and sore and slow and stuff, but for a couple of years there, late 20s, senior was a lot of fun. So we're playing with all the, my buddies I grew up with, and we're playing a home and a home against Dalhousie. They're the top team in the league. And we go to Dalhousie, 3.5 hours up north to play them in their home barn. We have the best two teams in the league. It's a 2-1 game. This kid that played one shift a game, because it's senior, you still have a guy that can't play but will fight or whatever and entertain the crowd. So he come out and he's like, let's fight. Well, I'm playing 20 something minutes a game. Finally, I'm like a good player on the team again. Yeah. Like I'm like a, above average player again, which happened since midget or whatever.
Pee-wee.
So Pee-wee, yeah. So a 2-1 game, and he wasn't very big. So I was like, not tonight, but I said, maybe tomorrow night. It's just 2-1 game. I need to play. But I said, I'll fight you tomorrow night. No problem. I wasn't too worried about it. And then we're beating them at home the next night, and he gets out for his one shift. This is late in the third period. I'm going up the ice. I'm undoing my elbow pads. Like, I'm like, we're going to fight this shift. It's his only shift. He asked me to fight last night, and I said we would fight tonight. So I'm taking off my elbow pads. He knew that he was sent out there to fight. And in classic rat fashion, he jumps one of our 19-year-old guys that doesn't fight, can't fight, couldn't fight a cold. So he jumps him in the corner. And I'm like, oh man. I was like, I knew he didn't want to fight me, and this is his way out of it, because now he's going to get kicked out. So I'm standing at the top circles, just standing there watching the scrum behind the net. And he comes out acting like a big shot with the linesman. The linesman's got him. In hockey culture, if the linesman has you, you're safe, right? People feel like you're safe if they have you. And but he come over and he reached at me to create the illusion that he wanted to fight. But the man didn't want to fight. He had his opportunity to fight. He didn't want it. He wanted to get out of the game by jumping our little guy. So when he grabbed me and asked me to fight to make it look like he wanted to fight, I dropped my gloves. I said, all right, bluff called, let's go. I already had my elbow pads on. I was ready. And then as soon as he seen that it was for real and I called his bluff, he darts for the door. So I dart for the door. I'm like, I'm going to grab this guy before he gets out of the door. And by the time I grabbed a hold of him, we were both on the other side of the door. So it was a tough look, not proud of it. In my hometown, as a guy that, runs a business and stuff, I felt horrible, especially kids watching that, and wasn't good. But yeah, that's how it happened. And that was a big, I was like, I'm too competitive. This is senior. I gotta stop playing this.
But a great viral video.
And in a small town like that, you're an instant legend.
It was not my best look for sure. And it was definitely a moment when I was like, probably probably time to stop playing.
That's probably something I would do. So I respect the guy.
Yeah. I mean, it to me, there's code, there's etiquette. I've always tried to abide by that code playing, and I just felt like he crossed some lines, and anyway,
And then
water
you
under the bridge
just
now.
beat him up for it. Yeah.
And I beat him up for it. Yeah. Well, I always said, my grandfather always told me, he said, if you go looking for a punch in the mouth, you're probably going to find one. So that's
Good
just
advice.
That's
Yeah,
just the
very
balance of
true.
life, the balance of the food chain.
Yeah. So 20 year, you end up just going back quickly. Your 20 year, got in the numbers game. You ended up going overseas to Austria with Ian Sabb, one of the most interesting cats in the world, and Nathan McKinnon's current bodyguard. How interesting was that? One, needing to live with Sabb, but also going over and playing that game.
So it started the year before. I mentioned my 19 year I had a concussion. I did. I didn't play the second half of the year. I was negotiating my contract with Vancouver, and then didn't play, came back for playoffs, didn't play well. The contract's off the table. So I'm like, oh boy, what do I do now? The Vancouver scout that drafted me says, I have a connection with Pierre Paget, who's a former NHL coach in Europe. Come over to Europe and develop. He's like, you're not going to play junior again. And like, we already know you can play defense and you can fight. You don't need to prove that one more year in junior. She said, go to Europe and develop your skills, develop your skills, because at the next level, you're going to need them. So when I went over to Europe, it was, this is pre-Instagram. This is pre-FaceTime. This is like a different day and age. I remember like Skyping my parents when I got over there. So I go over there. I'm completely out of my element. I got no front tooth, long hair. I'm going over to play on these Olympic-sized barns, skilled game, totally different game, like zero dump and chase, zero, just like a completely different game. And so I get over there out of my element. So I'm just adjusting, 2 or 3 weeks to adjusting. And social media wasn't what it is now. So I didn't even know Sabb joined our team until I came home to my apartment, because the team gives you an apartment, and he's sitting there jacked, no shirt on, in like his boxers, eating toast. He's like, hey man, what's up? And Sabb, I've known him my whole life. I played spring hockey with him when I was like 7 or 8 years old, all the way up through, and then played against him in junior and stuff. So just to see that big galoot sitting in my living room in Europe, I was like, what? You're in Halifax, I hardly see you. Now we're across the world and you're in my apartment. So we had a blast, man. I love that guy. We had a blast together there. But then there was an NHL lockout. So the NHL players flooded to Europe, pushed us down the ranks. We ended up playing on like the European junior team for most of the year. And then I left and came back to the Q. And that was the year you guys won it. And, the 320s were set in stone. So I was the odd guy out. And Cam, he talked to me about being traded. And he's like, listen, I'm not going to send you to a team you don't want to go to. Like, I don't care what they're offering in return. Like, we're going to make sure you're comfortable with this, which was so professional. And to this day, I appreciate it. So, when Victoriaville offered something, bag of pucks, I give him the green light. I was like, yeah, sure. I'm not fussy. I want to be low maintenance. So I went to Victo, that year as a 20. And, played with Phil Deneau briefly before he got traded, and Phil Maillet, who played some NHL games, Jonathan Diaby, high pick. So I played just some good players there, and also got a feel for what it was like to be outside the Maritime Division too.
Were they one of the teams that you lied to during the draft?
I lied to all of them. Every single team. Every one of them. Even Moncton. The worst part was Moncton, because I played in Moncton, and they really wanted me, and they put something in the paper the next day about it. And, but they had a really good team. They won it that year. So I was like, I don't think I can make that team. It would be fun to play for Moncton, great organization and close to home. But I was like, I don't think as a 17-year-old, I'll make that team.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, they would have had Gormley and Melindy and Savard, and they had
before Melindy, but they had Gormley, they had Barberio, Savard, they had Jadouin, who was nasty.
Metcalf got traded there at Christmas.
Metter was like a spare guy. They had Patrick Down, who was like, him and I were kind of growing up together, like pretty similar in skill levels. So, but besides that, it was like studs.
Yeah.
And they traded for Nicolas Deschamps, Bourque,
Yeah.
Tessier. Like they stacked that team,
Yeah,
that year.
we played them in the first round. It was a lot of fun. It was great. Yeah, get matched up against Gabriel Bourque was a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, fun.
Yeah, talk about moving on after that. You go to St. Thomas University, and what did that do, for your business career?
Yeah, what a weird change. Like, so I went from Europe back to Halifax for a couple weeks, then to Victo. I decided that I had to kind of like, school was never really discussed for me, like in my household or anything growing up, and I wasn't a great like high school student. But I was like, I need to have a plan B. Like, I need to solidify a plan B here. And I knew the Q gave out a scholarship. I knew Halifax gave out a really great scholarship. So I thought hard about school. And then the Vancouver connection, his brother was Wendell Young.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Wendell Young. Yeah. So Daryl Young was the Vancouver scout who drafted me and did a lot for me. And then his brother was the GM of the Chicago Wolves of the American League. So he got me a tryout after the Europe experience. He got me a tryout in Chicago. And I already had lined up a school, St. Thomas. Now, this is how stupid I was. I didn't look at programs. I didn't look at who went there, what their record was, who was on the team, nothing. I just I chased the scholarship dollars. They offered me the largest amount of money, and I was like, all right. And it's 2 hours from home where I was living everywhere else. So I was like, it'd be nice to be close to home again. Since I was 16, I've been away. So then I went to Chicago camp, and I was very loose because I was like, I'm going to go to school. At that point, school had started for a couple of weeks. So I was like, I already have my house. I have my teammates, my roommates, my classes, but Chicago, I'm going to go to the AHL camp just cause. And Sab was also at that camp, and every single invited player got cut. Like I assumed we would, cause how that works. All the draft picks and stuff come down after they get cut from the NHL camp. But as with my exit meeting, they said, like, we were really impressed with how you played. And it was probably the best hockey I ever played because I was so loose. I didn't care because I knew I was going to go back to school. It was already in my head. And they said, and I was at camp for like 2 or 3 weeks at this point. So I missed classes and stuff. And they said, we want to connect you with an East Coast team, play there, and we'll keep an eye on you. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. And they were surprised. They're like, well, here's an opportunity to play professional hockey. And I was like, no, like I'm going to go back to school. And they said, well, what about all the homework and classes you missed? I was like, no, I've been doing that since I've been here. And they were shocked by that. And probably everybody in my life was shocked by that. But I was like, no, like my mind is made up. I'm going to school. I don't want to get burned like by the business of hockey and be stuck late 20s, early 30s without like a future. And so I left, and the GM chased me out the door and said, no, listen, we're going to sign you to an American League deal. We want to keep you around. So I signed a deal with Chicago. They sent me to the coast, but I was on an AHL ticket. I played until Christmas of that year, which was as long as you could play without losing your eligibility. I decided I had a tough conference. I loved it there in Evansville. Loved my coach, loved my teammates, loved the hawk. Everything was great. Was making a little bit of money for the first time, it was great. But I talked to my coach, which he was great. He was like, Sawyer, listen, you got to do what's best for you. Like, we don't want to lose you, but we understand if you got to go. So he supported that decision. I left, went back to school. So then I joined the team that January. It was St. Thomas. And when I got there, I was like, I still want to play pro. So I'm going to take as many courses as I can, as quickly as I can. So I'm as young as possible to come back on the other side of my degree and try to play pro again. Well, I graduated. I finished my courses in 2.5 years. I did summer session, intersession, online, just straight ahead. I felt super out of place, like in the first year classes, you know what that's like, cause like going to university when you're 21 and, it was weird being with like 18-year-olds in first year. So I was just like, I want out. But at the same time, I started Country Liberty. So I used Country Liberty as a way to apply the same like research to all of my business courses. So it was kind of like a hack for in school. I was just applying it to all my subjects. And then I just started it in real life. Just, I don't know why not. And then it just kind of took off from there. So by the time I graduated, I was faced with a tough decision. Like, do you want to go play in the minors again and try that? or do you want to do this business thing? And again, just some difficult conversations with myself. And I decided that I felt business had more like, longevity. So I said, no, I'll try this business thing. And being at school, I realized, I was good at other things other than just hockey. So I was really like inspired and excited by that. So I was like, I want to, chase this feeling.
Oh, look where it's taking you now. Country Liberty, take it off. You're in Nashville. You got your own podcast too as well, right?
Yeah. I pumped the brakes. They're a lot of work, podcasts. I did, I think, 20 episodes, man. And then once I started to expand and move down here, I didn't, I paused it. But I started that. I think I did 20 episodes. I'll pick that back up again because it's so much fun. But yeah, just focusing on the expansion right now.
We're lucky. We got great guys with BMV Media, so they do all the tough work. We just show up and talk.
We just slide in here and don't do much.
Don't do much. Just talk.
Yeah,
so.
that's the dream right there, because it was a lot of preparation. Like I was doing everything. I was outreaching to people. I was setting up the questions, researching their backgrounds. Doing all the recording stuff. So yeah, it was a lot of work.
A lot of work. Yeah.
I guess I do that. You don't.
I just show up and talk. So it's
so all I'm hearing is Cuz is the weakest link.
I am easily the weakest link. Yeah, but
he's what pulls it all together.
I don't know what I really do. Yeah, no, but happy to be here.
He's the color. It's funny when we were talking about that earlier, the color commentary. I remember when I was a health bomb, or not so much when I was a healthy scratch, more when I was injured or suspended. Johnny Moore would invite us up to the booth to do the color. So us as players could do the color for our own games. And I remember that being so much fun because there's no pressure. You can just speak if you want to, or be silent for 2 straight minutes. You're not doing the play-by-play. But every now and again, you could just like throw in a dig at one of your teammates on the radio. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into the quick hits?
You go ahead. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we'll wrap it up. We've been taking enough of your time here, but we like to kind of finish with our guests with these quick hits. So you just give a quick 1-word answer, basically, and we're going to ask you 10 of them. So I'll start with most talented player you've ever played with.
McKinnon.
Easy. Yeah.
Drouin was a close second, though. Junior, man, he was.
Yeah.
Drouin was right there.
Funniest player you ever played with?
Funniest looking? Brad Cuzner.
It's back when I had hair, too, so it's gotten even worse.
Hardest coach you played for?
Cam. Probably my favorite coach and the hardest coach.
Yeah. He's always harder on the D-men that were similar game style to him, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Worst Q rink you played in?
Oof, Bay Kamal. Terrible.
Favorite playoff series by the Mooseheads?
The Quebec series.
Favorite team to beat in the Q?
Ooh, I like beating them all. Moncton or probably Moncton.
Yeah. Favorite teammate ever?
Conrad and I are still really close. He'd be one of them.
Least favorite ref in your Q career?
Oh, everyone.
All of them.
Every single one of them.
It's crazy how often they're wrong.
Oh, they're wrong every time. I think I led the league in penalty minutes, and I don't think I earned any of those.
None of them. All bad
not
calls.
One of them. No, not one.
Toughest player you fought?
Probably the Cameron Abney, that NHL camp.
Yeah. And last one, number 10, favorite bar in Nashville?
Favorite bar in Nashville? Red Door. It's a dive. Awesome. It's a dive bar. Yeah, Red Door.
Wow.
Too cool for the strip, eh?
I did the strip. It's too much chaos, man. I don't do well with crowds. The last time I was on Broadway, I was with my girlfriend and her family, a bunch of women, middle-aged women. I was just meeting them for the first time, and a brawl broke out. So I'm there defending all these people, like for the sake of my relationship, and it was a huge brawl. So I don't love the big crowds anymore.
Yeah, well, I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for us. I appreciate your time, Sawyer. It's always great to see you and talk to you and hear what's going on.
Listen,
yeah, I appreciate your time, guys.
Hey,
thanks a lot for having me on.
Congrats on all your success, buddy. You're killing it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And great to talk with Sawyer Hannay, as always. First time on this pod. Good to have him on, eh, Brad?
Yeah, just a great guy, good competitor. One of those guys you love to have on your team and you hate to play against. Yeah.
Absolutely. And hey, thank you to all of you for sticking with us midway through the season of our first year on the podcast. Been great response so far, and would love if you continue to share it with your friends and family to help keep us growing. And just wanted to say thanks to you, listen and watch as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button to get notified whenever we post something new.
And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and leave us a comment.